all the time, every time.
Everything dissenting is Russia,
Apparently,
right? It's not just Russia. Just if you're a dissenter, then that's just Russian disinformation. And yeah, just to make sure they took you off of Twitter. You've talked about this war in Ukraine not just being about the war in the Donbass between Kiev and Russian-backed rebels, and not just about NATO expansion, but also about the U.S. dismantling of arms control and increasingly surrounding Russia with offensive weapons, the missile sites in Poland and Romania, and the increased ability for the U.S. to hit Russia as a result of it killing treaties like the ABM Treaty, the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, and the INF Treaty. Does the war in Ukraine, does it make it more likely or less likely that those issues will be addressed?
What it's going to do is bring these issues to a head. Either Russia is going to not only win in Ukraine, but win so decisively that, and then because of the blowback on sanctions in Europe, Europe is unable to sustain this American policy of decoupling from Russia. Russia gets Europe to agree to a renegotiated European security framework, which is Russia's goal all along. And that will be inclusive of new arms control agreements that prohibit intermediate nuclear forces, that get rid of these anti-ballistic missile sites in Poland and Romania, and seeks to remove tactical nuclear weapons from Europe altogether. That's the Russian objective. Or Russia will win, Europe refuses to engage, and now we have a new Cold War, in which case the United States not only will retain what we're calling anti-ballistic missile sites in Poland and Romania, but they will convert them to offensive missile launch platforms. You know, the Mark 41 Aegis Ashore system, which this is, right now is configured to fire, I think it's an SM-3 surface-to-air missile that can shoot down missiles. But the same system can fire the Tomahawk missile. Couldn't do that during the INF Treaty, that was outlawed. But now that we're not members of the INF Treaty, within a month of us pulling out of the INF Treaty, we tested a Tomahawk from a Mark 41 launch canister. So we know that can happen. We've also converted the SM-3 into something called the SM-6 Typhoon, which is a surface-to-surface missile. But that's not the most dangerous thing. The most dangerous thing is that we've activated, I think it's called the 56th Field Artillery Brigade, but we have to go back and look at it. But it's a Cold War era unit. The last time it existed was when it was armed with Pershing 2 missiles, you know, the one that triggered the INF Treaty to begin with, because when the Pershings launched, 12 minutes later, it could hit Moscow. And the Russians said that's unacceptable. The whole world was on the cusp of, you know, dying. So we signed an INF Treaty. We got rid of these missiles, decent stability. Now the treaty doesn't exist anymore. What is the U.S. doing? We're activating the same brigade. This time we're going to equip them this summer with a system called Dark Eagle. It's a hypersonic missile, meaning that when it's launched, 5 to 7 minutes later, it will hit Moscow with pinpoint accuracy. Now, it's not a nuclear system, but it's capable of what's called a decapitation strike. That is, you fire it, and when you hit leadership targets, you take them out. Why is this dangerous? Read the Russian military doctrine on nuclear warfare release. Two things about it. One, even though they're designed to be a deterrence against nuclear strike, meaning that if you attack Russia with nuclear, they're going to respond nuclear. One of the things that could trigger a Russian nuclear response is a decapitation strike. They said if you take any effort to take out our command and control of nuclear weapons, we automatically hit you with everything we got. Now, the other thing about their doctrine is it's not wait until the missiles hit. Although they have a system called dead hand that can handle that. I mean, if you take them out, the dead hand takes over, they fire the missiles anyways. So it doesn't even think about a decapitation strike because the missiles are coming. But the Russian doctrine is launch on warning, which means as soon as they get an indication of a launch. Now, because these are hypersonic missiles, the period between notification of an indication and the missile impacting is under 5 minutes. That's not much decision-making time. So what happens when there's a mistake? What happens if we get an artificial indication of a launch? What happens if there's an accidental launch? What happens if something goes wrong that makes the Russians think that there is an actual launch? They got 5 minutes to figure it out. And if they don't figure it out, they're hitting the button and the missiles are going. That's the situation we're finding ourselves in today. We're talking about the closest we've ever been to global thermonuclear annihilation. Nobody's talking about it. Everybody's acting as if this is just business as usual. It's not, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end of the world. And it's going to happen because we're dumb, we're stupid, we make mistakes, and we've eliminated any potential for the Russians to sit back and go, could this be a mistake? These missiles can't be allowed to deploy to Germany. They can't be allowed. If they do, it's literally over because there will be a mistake. So how do we stop this from happening? How do we convince the United States this is a bad idea?
If you're saying what fools the people are who are advising Biden on this, what would you be advising Biden to do?
In the war now,
How would he do that?
you call up Zelensky and say it's over.